Hello and welcome to the SRC podcast. Joining me, Big M, to look at Bridgend's chances for the season is their head coach and former Wales international hooker, Scott Baldwin. How are you?
Good, thank you. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. So let's dive straight into it. What is the coaching team looking like at Bridgend this season? Because you have newly joined as the head coach.
So the coaching team this season at the moment consists of myself, who'll be heading up the programme and taking on the defence role. Bradley Davis is going to be taking on the forwards role in terms of line out and all things forwards outside of the scrum. Matthew Jones is attack coach, assisted by Matthew Morgan, and there could potentially be one other added for the scrum in the near future.
Do we get any previews on that, or is that all hush-hush at the minute?
Potentially, if agreed, an ex-Welsh international front rower.
So can't go wrong there, having an international front rower. He's a scrum coach. Okay, so you've joined from Newcastle Bantam. You come from a professional setup, so it was last season was your first season full-time coaching. So what were the reasons for you coming back down to Bridgend? I'm assuming you had a contract up there.
Yeah, so I had another year on my contract, and I absolutely loved my time while coaching Newcastle. For personal reasons, my children had just started school. My wife works in the school. It was well documented I left Worcester because my mum wasn't very well. That took its toll throughout the year in terms of my week would look. I'd get up at 1 o'clock on a Monday, drive to Newcastle, straight into work. Through the week, then stay in a hotel, post-match then for home games on Friday nights. My companion, Sam Cross, would drive us back. I'd be doing my coding, spend the Saturday with the kids, Sunday, out and about, visit my mother, my missus' family, and then get the preview ready and then go again 1 o'clock Monday morning, straight up to Newcastle.
Awesome.
And yeah, it just took its toll, and later in the season, my mum became seriously ill. Worse than she was, obviously, and I wasn't getting an opportunity to spend time with my family, and this isn't a pity party for myself. I knew what I took on when I took it. Probably didn't realise how much it was going to drain me, the commuting, but the club are brilliant, really understanding. Obviously, Dimes was at Worcester, when I first made the decision to come home as a player, and he was the same as when I was coaching, family first, and gutted not to still be coaching Newcastle in terms of the environment. Loved my time there, and I was allowed the freedom to coach the defence how I seem fit under Alex Codlin and Steve Diamond. But yeah, the opportunity presented itself to stay in the game with Bridgend, and I jumped at it with two hands.
Well, obviously, sorry to hear that. Obviously, families and well, but yeah, family comes first and foremost. Anyone who listens to the Scarlets podcast, we will know I've got 5 kids. They're my entire world. I struggle working half hour away from them. Never mind as far as Newcastle. So
the one liner which got me was when I was making the decision, I spoke to a few coaches within the game, and the consensus was probably, mate, if you leave the pro game coaching, it's hard to get back in.
Yeah.
It's impossible to get time back with your kids. I'll take hard over impossible any day. So if things go well and in the future there's an opportunity and that's the path to go down, then great. If not, I'm at peace with the decision I made.
That is exactly what I want to hear from someone involved in Welsh rugby. So let's talk about your squad. You've made quite a few signings. I mean, someone could be mistaken for thinking it's the Celtic Warriors Dawn tour with the amount of boys from Ponty you've signed.
Yeah.
So give us a little rundown. Who are going to be the key players for you this season?
I think Ryan Wilkins has been a huge asset to us in terms of, I hadn't seen too much of him, obviously coming to the post late, but he's one of our defence drivers. Obviously, that's the area of the game I'm looking to specialise in, and he's been driving that in terms of training. Harvey Nash has come in and he's really driving the standards and not accepting mediocrity. We've got some great forwards who've been there previously in terms of Zach O'Driscoll, who makes his 150th appearance for us this weekend, and Jordan Collier, who I played with at the Ospreys, managed to squeeze him out of retirement. Told him he hasn't got to do any contact in the week. And obviously you've got the likes of players like Luke Price, who shone when playing for Bridgend last year. And now he's got pressure of Ben Bonnell as well. So they're just a few of the signings we've made, but everyone that's come into the squad has added to the team.
Well, we're talking about the key boys. It's well documented that this competition is going to be first and foremost development. Who are the younger boys in your squad? Specifically, I know you've got a handful of academy boys who they will be starting to make a name for themselves in this league.
From the academy, you've got the likes of Ben Evans and Rydian Greenhall coming in from the academy side of things. And then you've got Alex George, young Lucid from Tondi, who's really impressed me since coming into the environment. He was there the tail end of last year and done a job at Lucid and hooker. I've twisted his arm to work on his throw-in, potentially for this season. Then again, Ryan Wilkins is only 21. I've seen him in training and in games, and I think he's got a future ahead of him in the pro game if that's what he wants. Tried to persuade Ed Howley to come with me potentially last year to Newcastle, so a big fan of his. And Tom Williams, who was attack coach in Newcastle last year, or is Newcastle attack coach, sorry, had Ben Bonnell at Jersey and said he's one of the most skillful players he's ever worked with, which, considering a player who played in the Scarlets the year that they won the league, is a pretty high statement. So yeah, looking forward to working with them and picking their brains in terms of the ideas going forward.
Okay, so that's your squad, that's your coaching setup. So let's talk, how has training gone so far? Some clubs have been having conditioning blocks, rugby blocks, some are mixing and matching. What's been your approach to this pre-season?
So from session one, we were into rugby, but there was a lot of running around that. So we'd start the session with a tough fitness block, into conditioning games, back into fitness, into conditioning games, back into fitness. That was our first 4-week block. And the boys at the end, a couple of them were saying how tough it was, but I want us to be a team that can go for 80 minutes. And the way I want us to defend, to get the ball back, I don't want us defending passively for 40 phases. I want to get the ball back in 3 to 5 phases, and to be able to do that, you have to be able to reload with line speed and go again. And ultimately, when teams kick it to us, we want to be able to counter attack and play on top and make decisions on the pitch as opposed to being pre-prescribed. Something I was a massive fan on at my time at Harlequins, working under Nick Evans, playing on pitches rather than just playing a game of chess and just being really structured, because ultimately if you're really structured, it's quite easy to defend because it just comes around the corner, off 9, off 10, get to an edge. So you need to be unpredictable within that. So everyone says it, you want to have two sides of attack, but sometimes if a team is methodical defensively and they split the field well, you actually want to overload the one side. So again, we're trying to coach them to make decisions on pitches. Something that, again, I picked up from my time in Newcastle is being really consistent in the drills we do. Ultimately, rugby is a very simple game. The best teams are the one that can make decisions on pitches. So we're trying to show them the pitches to make decisions on, to allow them to do that in games. So just trying to focus on the simple side of it. So yeah, there's been a lot of running, but there's been a lot of rugby content as well.
So I like that style. We're very scenario based. Something I advocate for. You know, I only coach, under 7s, under 8s. They're a lot different at that level, but yeah, I'm 100%.
The game's the same. The game is the same. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not under 7s because it's tagged, but yeah, once you get to 15 aside, I think the biggest thing is, and I learned this in my time at Quins, and it's probably the most enjoyable time in my career, is ultimately you've got to where you are because you're a good rugby player, not a robot. And it's quite tough to get that out of some players. It took me a while when I went up there. So trying to give the players the freedom and understand, like, we expect errors in training. That's the only way we develop and get better. And you understand what your skill set is then. So trying to take that fear of failure out of boys and not be worried. If it was the right decision and the accuracy was wrong, then we can work on that.
So from the sound of it, you're going to be a side that's got a strong level of fitness and you're working on transition ball. So is that the sort of thing you're working on in your pre-season games? Is that a style we're going to see from the Ravens this season?
Yeah, 100%. And I think we want to get back in touch with the borough as well. So spoke to a few clubs within the borough. Tondi, Kenvikill, Bridgend Athletic, Nantly Ffyfflon, Maesteg, Quins. We're going to train on a rota against them on a Thursday. So we're getting used to different attacks every week and different defences to challenge ourselves. But also I think that then allows you to get the players who aren't playing out to train with those clubs on a Thursday, opposed to just having bodies of training on a Thursday and then under-resourcing the teams within the borough. So looking to get on top of that. But yeah, in terms of the way we want to play flat and fast. Anytime we can get over the halfway line, I want us to play on top, like speed over shape. Don't want to be too rigid in that. We'll have a simple framework which you're allowed to make decisions in rather than the structure. Again, I think structure is very confined, which is, I know it's weird coming from a hooker, but yeah, I just want us to be able to play to width and make decisions and then improve the players on their rugby ability rather than just tell and sell.
I mean, outside of just developing your own team and players for, the pro game, it looks like you're developing all the teams around you as well, pulling them all in. I think that's something a lot of, amateur boys would dream of, that first step up would be going to the Prem or the SRC as we know it. So training with them boys is, it's got to be something that they look forward to, and obviously their intensity will rise in those scenarios.
Yeah, and again, you go back to your own personal experiences, and I remember the actual time I got picked up by Bridgend was training for Bridgend Athletic on a Thursday night against Bridgend. Bridgend needed a hooker to go on the bench that weekend, and I was on the bench then against Letley, and then signed for Bridgend a week later. And if I hadn't trained that Thursday night, who knows? Maybe the career wouldn't have happened. So from a selfish point of view as well, I get to see the best players on the borough on a consistent basis training against us, so I can potentially have them in the future.
I think anyone who watched the the finals weekend, your divisions 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, anyone can tell you there are a lot of good players in these lower down leagues, and all anyone needs is a chance, and that's something that UC are looking to provide, which I think is absolutely amazing. So we've got your training down, we've got your pre-season down. So what sort of challenges has there been? Obviously, new coaching group, quite a few new signings. What sort of challenges have there been? And obviously bringing in those players from the academy.
To be fair, the most challenging thing for me has probably been from a new role point of view, having more of a holistic look over everything, not just seeing it through my defensive eyes, and managing, knowing who's training on a Tuesday, who's training on a Thursday, putting them into groups ready for the session. Trying to get bibs was a bit of a pain, trying to get them because we had a lot of old bibs which the boys were moaning weren't probably to the standard we need. We looked like no offense to anyone, a pub team in terms of the bibs. So to be fair, the club's invested in 40 plus bibs, so it's very easy and clear to split the group now and get two teams together and start playing on that. Outside of that, because we know each other so well in terms of the coaches, it's been pretty aligned. Matthew obviously sees the attack side of it and wants to be really adventurous, and from a defence point of view, I want teams to be adventurous and force errors. So that's been a bit of a tricky one. There's been a lot of transition ball, which again is good, and hopefully that serves us well throughout the season. But yeah, it's been pretty cohesive so far, to be honest.
So I think I've got my tagline there. Scott Baldwin doesn't like dirty bibs.
Yeah.
And that's got to be the one. So if we look into this season coming now, obviously last year you weren't involved, but 9th place out of 13 with 9 wins. What do you see are the targets for yourselves this season?
My target, whether we achieve it or not, is to win the league. Now, I think, and I spoke about this at the Ospreys Munster game, I think from my side, you have to hear that from your coach. And I truly believe that, and I've spoken it to the players. We had a decent result last weekend. I didn't think it was at the standard we need to win the league, and I don't think it was at the standard of the players we've got. It's a starting point, and we're happy to get the win, but we have to be better. And I've said it openly to the players, and I've said it when I was commentating on other teams. Like, your coach is ultimately, Warren Gatlin was always brilliant when I was working under him, and going out and expecting us to win every game. Now, we're not going to win every game, but if we don't go out with the intent to win a game, then what's the point of being in this league?
I absolutely love that. That is brilliant. That's the mindset you need to instill in your players. And you've taken everything I would want in a coach, and I'm really gutted here at Bridgend. Would you fancy moving a bit further west? I wouldn't mind that. So, needless to say, Bridgend, whether or not they finish or not, you're pushing as hard as you can for everything. So that's the rugby side of things. I can't speak to you without mentioning one thing, and I do have to ask: does everyone still mention it whenever they meet you? That lion in South Africa.
That was the first meeting I had when I went to Harlequins. Was walking into Jungle Book, Lion King. It was the same one when I walked into Newcastle, because Alex Codlin was my forwards coach at Harlequins and the head coach of Newcastle. Yes, it does. It gets brought up at every dinner, and people will say at the dinner, "How silly were you doing that?" And I said, "Well, you're the silly fool that's paid to come and listen to me tell you the story about it." So, it's look, no lasting damage, which is brilliant. So I laugh about it now. Probably the funniest thing was coming home from South Africa when my wife and family knew I was okay. And walking into the house, and my little boy was dressed as a lion. So, yeah. And then obviously the first game back then was against Saracens, and again, love the fact they put the Lion King song on. So yeah,
you're never going to live that down, So I'm glad there's a positive spin on it, and everyone can join in and take the mick out of you, especially your kids. If they can't do it, who can?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you haven't been with the squad long, but you have been at a game. So I've had some terrible answers for these. I've had some cop outs. So just be nice. Give me a nice straight answer. So first thing, nice and easy. How much is a pint in a clubhouse?
Oh, pass. I've never paid for a pint in there.
What is this? This is still grassroots rugby, man. People should know how much.
I'll buy a pint. I tell you what, I'll buy a pint tomorrow and let you know.
Okay, I think I can settle for that. Okay, who's the longest in the shower?
I don't know the squad. I can tell you who isn't.
Okay.
Matthew Jones.
That'll have to do it. And obviously, again, you haven't been there long, so this might be a bit tricky. But who is Mr. Bridgend? Who is the first one in, the last one out?
From a playing point of view, Zach O'Driscoll. And it's his 150th game tomorrow.
Well, good luck to him. I'm not sure if it'll be his 150th game when this comes out, but obviously, well done to him on that achievement, and I hope he gets through the full game. Thank you so much for joining me, Scott. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and good luck for the season.
No problem. Thank you.